University class of 2024. My dad graduated from the University of Washington and attended Garfield High School. His father, my grandfather, taught at the University of Washington, and my grandmother worked as a compassionate healthcare worker on First Hill. I guess you can say my roots run deep in Seattle. In college, I studied human development and family studies, as well as business administration. A major reason I was involved in both of these programs is because both programs served as part of my personal recovery. One Sunday morning, when I was just 11 years old, I sat beside my dad watching car races on TV. That day started out like any other day. He asked me that morning, "Is it okay if I go for a bit?" He was referring to going to cleaning the roof of our home. Those would be his last words to me. He would die unexpectedly of a heart attack, leaving my mother and I without the man in our house, who loved us both infinitely and unconditionally. My whole world changed that Sunday morning in 2008. Now, why would I share this with you as I introduce Mayor Harrell for the State of the City speech for the City of Seattle? Because I believe what has allowed me to write my story, to find hope and strength out of one of the saddest days of my life for a kid who didn't even know what a funeral was, is knowing that I had to find a path forward. I had to talk with people, rely on those who loved me, continue to learn about what I was feeling and how I could cope. That I had to claim my happiness, my success, my purpose, and that if it was to be, then it would be up to me. And I realized I couldn't be without the help and commitment from those willing to help. That I wasn't in it alone, and there were many helping hands, many of whom are here with me today. Seattle is climbing out of a narrative of its own despair. It too has suffered through its many losses. And while it is not one single event that changed its course like my personal story, the path of its recovery will take many helping hands. At the helm leading this recovery is our mayor, Bruce Harrell. Last year, I heard Mayor Harrell take the time to present on a community call for Leadership Tomorrow. I have also spent time speaking with him on the phone about the work that I'm interested in regarding helping youth work through grief and emotional issues associated with loss. Mayor Harrell always calls me right back, eager to mentor myself and also my first cousin, a law school student who spoke to him at length several weeks ago about her own career and ideas for supporting this Seattle community. He is always very generous with his time and concern. I believe that Seattle will not only recover, but Seattle will indeed claim its rightful position in this country as one of its best cities. Mayor Harrell wants the city to be safe and for its people to achieve their dreams. This is what Seattle needs. A mayor who cares about one life at a time and will not rest until we are safe, we are recovered, and until we as a city are positioned for success. I present to you Mayor Bruce Harrell, Seattle's 57th mayor.
Warm introduction. You represent the hope of our youth. Your voice helps me push back against the cynicism and the pessimism that will only serve to impede our future as a city. Cynicism, I've always believed, is left for those who are old in spirit, not you and me. As mayor, I have to be the chief enthusiast of this city. I have to be the architect of its plans, the convener of great minds and hearts in the city, but most importantly, I have to listen to our youth as well. Nobel Prize winner Bernard Shaw once said, "Life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself." And so, I begin by speaking about what Seattle is, finding Seattle at this moment in time, that I am more concerned about what it can and will be. We're willing to do the work to create the Seattle we want it to be. And so I begin by first thanking those helping us answer those questions, many of who are here with me right now. City Council members, City Attorney Ann Davidson, members of the Cabinet, members of the King County Regional Homeless Authority. I didn't have that in there, but I see you right there. City employees, community mentors, Dr. Jones, and leaders in the Seattle Public School System. Welcome to the 2023 State of City Address. Thank you, David. Now we're at Fisher Pavilion. I think you got the instructions. You know, we're sort of slow playing where we're going to be. But we're at the shadow of the space needle. And we wanted everyone, first of all, to experience this once, one-of-a-kind culture sort of icon here in our city. But we wanted to share where we are as a city, and again, where we must do to create the Seattle we want to see, the Seattle of the future, as it once was called. Now, our first year in office, it was defined by an emphasis, quite candidly, on the essentials, on a commitment to just get back to the basics of good governance. Now, don't get me wrong, shiny things are cool, but things that work well are better. So we built our administration from the ground up, building relationships with many of you, building teams, building systems, building trust. We demonstrated our commitment to a One Seattle agenda, working together to advance our shared values, our common goals. It wasn't easy work, it continues to be hard work. But my focus as mayor was to redefine local politics into one of action, decisiveness, collaboration, and excellence. Many of my cabinet members, most of them are here, and I had, quite frankly, one simple message: outwork everyone and lead. Outwork everyone and lead. No one is penalized in my administration for honest mistakes, and they've heard me say this before. Now, you will get penalized if you don't care and you don't learn from your mistakes. Now, taking after the Seattle Kraken, we did build a penalty box on the 7th floor, otherwise known as Tim Burgess's office. Tim saw a preview of the speech and didn't see that line in it. But in all seriousness, I just want to say thank you. I want to start by saying thank you, Councilmember President Juarez, that we just communicated earlier. She's in D.C. right now, but I want to think of her vision of One Seattle and working with us as a leader on the council and putting our philosophy into partnership with the council. I also want to acknowledge her work with the indigenous peoples and the different tribes, the tribal leadership here, not just giving token acknowledgments, but putting her heart and her mind into the story that we all should embrace. I know she's watching right now, so she's probably thinking, yeah, he got me in there. But in all seriousness, she and I have pride together in this work that we're doing, and I could be more proud to be one of our partners. So since taking office, again, as I said, our focus was on core city government services. These are the services, by the way, people rely on every single day. Here's an example of the work that we've done. The Seattle Department of Transportation filled 23,000 potholes last year. Now that's 50% more than they filled in 2021. By the way, that's the highest number in the last 5 years. Now, I recognize potholes may not be your thing, but it's an example of paying attention to the essentials. But we must go further. The things that matter day to day, doing these right allows us to look into the horizon. Now, it's no coincidence, again, that we envision a better future for our city than doing so right here at the center of the 1962 World's Fair site. Again, the city of the future. The World's Fair did not look at the city at that time. It boldly envisioned the city of tomorrow. Not what it is, but what is possible, what it wanted to create. Now, a little more than 60 years ago, our city witnessed the design and development of the Space Needle. It was completed in 1 year. Now, in all honesty, it took me about 20 years to get the nerve to go to the top. But that aside, the Space Needle is proof positive that when Seattleites put their minds and their hearts and they act with urgency and creativity, we can do big things. Now, so framed by the images of the Pike Place Market in Mount Rainier, the Space Needle stands as a symbol of our city to the nation, a pinnacle of forward-looking vision and trailblazing leadership rooted in our DNA as a city. A city where innovation is inherent and progress is paramount. Now today we find ourselves quite candidly needing this kind of approach. A bold vision yet again. A form of what I've referred to as Space Needle thinking. This will put us on the cutting edge of building our city. Now, let's just be very candid with one another. There's no better example of where this unabashed boldness is needed than me picking up this paper. Then our downtown Seattle. Now, when I talk to mayors across the country, they tell me about the challenges they face and what's been done about it. In fact, my executive team can cite chapter and verse what other cities are trying to do, what's working well, what's not working so well. From the remote work revolution to ever-evolving retail landscape, the issues facing our downtown are not unique to Seattle, but what is unique are the resources that we have, the energy and the focus we can harness to solve these problems, to transform our downtown and quite candidly write a new playbook for this country on what a downtown neighborhood should look like. Look, I'm bullish on downtown. Let me say it again, I am bullish on our downtown. 100,000 residents, over 320,000 jobs. The undisputed economic engine and cultural hub of our region, our downtown is a special place and this country understands that. The problems we are facing are not insurmountable, and the opportunities, therefore, are immense. In the coming months, you'll hear more about what we're referring to as our Downtown Activation Plan. DAP. Sounds sort of cool. These will reflect both immediate activation strategies to make downtown safer and more welcoming, along with long-term transformational enhancements designed for residents and workers and neighborhoods and neighbors and tourists. Now, not a day goes by when either I or a member of my executive team are not working on this activation plan and talking to those that have the resources and the ideas to help us achieve it. So last year, I announced we were bringing employees back to the office, and I'm very pleased that employers like Amazon recently announced and recognized that coming back to work downtown is a great thing. And I, as mayor, embrace the proposition that it must be safe for them to return. As employees return, it has to be safe. So last week, I spent time walking 3rd Avenue all the way from the Pike Square light rail station up to the Pike Pine streets. And our plan recognized that downtown safety concerns are real. There's no way else to say that. We don't create a self-welcoming downtown for everyone. If we don't create that, everything will fall flat. It's as simple as that. Now, our city attorney, Ann Davidson, she recognizes this. She's an important partner who listens to the needs of residents and small businesses and then acts to fairly and justly hold people accountable for their behavior. So next month, I'll be issuing an executive order that takes steps to address the public health crisis on our streets caused by the epidemic of fentanyl and other synthetic drugs. Last year, 590 people died on our streets from drug overdose. That's 590 people too many. So on my walk along 3rd Avenue last week, I actually saw people using fentanyl. And quite frankly, it just breaks my heart. These are our sons and daughters. These are our brothers and sisters. These are moms and dads. These are people in our city. These are human beings who need treatment and care. So our administration, they know we lead with compassion, do everything we can to help people suffering from substance abuse disorder. Working with our public health partners, We will provide access we will provide the access to people who are in need. And that is, quite frankly, just the right thing to do. And for those trafficking these deadly drugs, for those preying on and exploiting our most vulnerable, for those who are using guns to commit crimes, we will arrest, we will prosecute, and we ensure accountability. That's the right thing to do, too. It's as simple as that. No one has been as impassioned of a voice for the need for evidence-based, effective treatment solutions than Councilmember Sarah Nelson. I want to give Councilmember Nelson a shout out. I've heard her do work and speak on this area. I appreciate her continued advocacy for people who need our help because we must do more. There's a sign of that that says applause right now. Applause! Activation and eyes on the street help create safety, and that's why our plan will light up our downtown corners with artists and musicians, pop-up vendors, social service workers, members of the faith community, creating a proactively positive presence for all. Our Seattle Restored program has already helped fill 30 formerly vacant downtown retail spaces with small businesses and entrepreneurs. We put in art installations and retail stores. But our current plan will go even further. We'll fill empty storefronts with a special focus on small businesses owned by people of color. We'll also make it easier and less expensive to start a business and create jobs. Now, I've had countless conversations with CEOs and union leaders and neighborhood advocates and small business leaders and housing supporters, helping with the vision of the new downtown. And if we build and create the assets that help us optimize opportunities for all, as Taylor said, many hands will be involved. Our One Seattle Day of Service, which is a sort of a beta trial, a concept we pushed out, provided we can all play a part in creating a better Seattle. So we've got another one coming up. Shout out, May 20th, Day of Service coming up. Save the date. You know, this kind of redefining of our city, it gives us a chance to correct the errors of the past, to reverse damaging conditions and reinvigorate, for example, our Chinatown International District in Little Saigon. This historic part of our greater downtown region should be a safe, thriving place for residents in every neighborhood who treasure it. I have many of my family members here, and they know our roots in this neighborhood go back almost 80 years. My aunt owned and operated a flower shop at 10th and Jackson for decades, and I'm inspired by the resilience and strength of this community. And as I said earlier, now is the time for bold action. That's why our long-term plan centers around downtown as sort of a laboratory for the future. Now the possibilities are endless. I mean, it may mean changing our zoning code to convert excess unused office space into housing. It may mean allowing greater flexibility in the use of street-level building spaces. It may mean new hotels. It may mean restaurants and entertainment businesses in the stadium area, while at the same time protecting and growing our industrial maritime jobs. In fact, in March, our city planners, many of whom are here, will launch a design competition around converting office buildings to housing, and we need to recognize that downtown's office space may never fill up as before. We need more housing options, so let's make downtown affordable for everyone who wants to live there. And at the same time, we have to realize that economic activity at our city's core is essential to our shared prosperity. It has been our economic engine that has powered our stability. So that balance is what our plan will address. Sort of on the cool side of things, it may mean a linear arts entertainment culture district that connects downtown with multiple neighborhoods, or identifying a 24/7 street, a stretch of several blocks where you can find a restaurant, bar, grocery, or your favorite clothing boutique at any hour of the day. I see some of my children there. That doesn't mean you can go down there any hour of the day, but some will go down there any hour of the day. It may mean working with the Pike Place market vendors to extend further into our downtown to sell their goods to a wider audience. So we must ensure that downtown, once again, is the destination where people want to be. Now, the recent opening of the convention center, the groundbreaking of streetscape improvements we announced last week at the Pine Corridor, the redevelopment of our waterfront, connecting it to downtown, along with 20 acres of new parkland along the waterfront, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, the FIFA World Cup matches coming here. Now, there is a lot to be optimistic about. Understand that. And our focus on downtown doesn't come at the expense of other neighborhoods, and it's critical to understand that. In fact, it strengthens it. For example, I'm excited to announce that in the preparation of the All-Star Game, the Seattle Mariners are funding and partnering with the city to renovate and restore Rainier Playfield on the south end. Now, this is a significant, lasting investment in the lives of South Seattle youth and all who enjoy city's parks. We could be more excited and grateful, and I'd like to acknowledge Frank Rivera from the Seattle Mariners, who's with us today. Frank, thank you for serving our transition team. Thank you. The truth is, the new downtown is going to be different. That's what we want. That's what we need. Downtown must be a place for everyone. A testimony to people at home and around the world of a metropolis not in decay, but ever on the rise. We are taking a One Seattle approach to developing this plan through public-private philanthropic partnerships, and we're aligning our investments, our ideas, our energy toward the common goal of rebuilding downtown Seattle. Now, some cynics, Taylor, may demand the exact blueprint for our entire downtown immediately. We need to do this right. It has to be sustainable. And we're working 7 days a week to deliver. Now, I take shortcuts sometimes. I did look at Wikipedia. I look at the Wikipedia this week just for the answers. And all it said was, see Portland. And then there was a link to Danny Westney's article. Wasn't too helpful. I love Portland, by the way. I don't want to be that mayor. That's just another neighboring city. Just a joke, Portland. But in all seriousness, we also need immediate action and innovation to respond to our public safety issues. We hear both of our chiefs here. The problems we're having are far too common in our city. Now, following national trends, Seattle saw a 4% rise in its reported crime last year. Now, in the fourth quarter of 2022, we did see an encouraging decline in crime, and an early indicator that our tactical decisions and our investment decisions can be effective. We know there's still so much work to do to build on this trend. So under our administration, our public safety framework is centered around 5 pillars. And this is a new approach that we've developed in our administration. Number 1, a holistic approach. We know police actions and arrests cannot ensure all of our safety issues. We need to integrate wide-ranging solutions and approaches to address criminal behaviors. Now that means removing the barriers to success that have existed for so long. Racism, poverty, a legal system too focused on punishment instead of restoring people to be valuable contributing members to our society. It means investing early, as we do with our current Seattle preschool program. It means making sure everyone has a fair chance at a living wage job. And it also includes the strategies I mentioned earlier, activation of public safety to put more eyes on the street and feet on the ground. It requires community-driven policing focused on problem solving and partnerships with community-based organizations. That's our holistic approach. But number 2, enforcement and investigations. We're not afraid or intimidated to enforce the law, to make arrests when people cause damage to the fabric of our neighborhoods. We must continue to improve our investigations and our systems, as we've done recently with the police department's sexual assault unit. Now our third pillar is around our efforts in recruitment and retention. We need more officers to address our staffing crisis. It relieves pressure on our current officers and enables more tactical options like the successful emphasis patrols we placed on 12th and Jackson on 3rd Avenue. We've made significant changes to our hiring system that have been at a constrained capacity, and for years we cut the length of time it takes to apply by 50%. Now, we're also ramping up our marketing spending in these areas fivefold, using modern digital advertisements to reach a diverse area of applicants from communities across the city. And I tell those interested in police reform, protect the communities you love and serve. This is our recruitment strategy. I'm working with those interested in helping us build up a great department. I want to thank Councilmember Peterson for his unwavering support for a police department with the right number of officers and the right kind of officers. Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Now, last year I attended every single patrol roll call to meet with our officers. That was a modern first. And I needed them to know how much I appreciated their strong public service. That's the first reason I met with them. I also needed them to know my expectations as their mayor. And I also needed them to know that they can be the biggest recruiters as we rebuild the department in a one Seattle way. This is a journey they are on with me to help restore public trust, to help restore public confidence, which really leads me into the fourth pillar, what we call cultural excellence. That ensures that our public safety leaders prioritize de-escalation through a lens of cultural competency. They embrace the values of accountability, justice, compassion, and empathy. And last, that is it only takes one person to start a clap for me. See, that sister in back gave me a clap on that. Cultural excellence. Our last pillar is we have to be a learning organization as a police department. We have to be open and transparent. We have to learn from our mistakes. We have to use data. We have to be receptive to feedback. We have to drive innovation. We have to explore new technology. We can't just do things the way we've done in the past. We have to learn from everything. A constant, living, breathing, learning organization. Now, this framework that I just described, this five-pillared framework, will inform a suite of legislation I plan to send to the council this year, ensuring we are aligned on the number of officers we need, a comprehensive strategy, and a vision for the future of public safety. We know that police officers cannot solve every problem. By expanding our public safety toolkit, we can better meet the needs of our residents, especially those with behavioral and mental health needs. Now, Seattle has done this kind of thing before, this kind of innovative path before. In 1970, the city founded the Medic One program. Now, this trained firefighters and paramedics in partnership with Harborview Medical Center and the University of Washington. And by the way, now would be a very appropriate time to remember Dr. Leonard Cobb. Many of you know he passed away last week at the age of 96. And Dr. Cobb was one of the founders of the Seattle Medic One program. He and the Seattle Fire Department helped set the standard for excellence in pre-hospital emergency care, a standard that remains a national model today. So applying lessons from a nationally proven model and locally pioneered solutions like Health One and the police department's current mental health crisis response unit, we can do this again through the foundation of a third public safety department working alongside police officers and firefighters. I recently appointed Director Reva Gonzalez as the new leader of the Community Safety and Communication Center, our 911 call center. Reva, as she is affectionately known from the fire department, she comes from the great fire department. Now, when I say great fire department, they weren't responsible for great fire. They're a good department, a great department. But just to be clear, when we expand the Community Safety and Communications Center, it's going to be more than simply answering 911 calls. Staffing this newly envisioned department with behavioral health experts, emergency dispatchers, and other necessary specialists beyond traditional first responders This department will be a civilian-assisted response and engagement department, CARE, the CARE department. In the coming weeks, we will be sharing with the City Council a comprehensive white paper envisioning what this third department may look like. And I sincerely appreciate the work of Andrew Lewis, Councilmember Andrew Lewis' consistent push for more options to help more people stay safe and healthy. And let's give Councilmember Lewis a hand. Now, while advancing the work of the CARE department will require bargaining in partnership with our current city's public safety and labor unions, I see you and I hear you, but we'll also demonstrate our commitment to a diversified response. We know that's what the people want. So we will continue to look at a diversified response through the launch of a dual response pilot program later this year. Now, we are committed to embedding public safety in everything we do to broaden our approach. So this year, we will hire 26 park rangers. Now that's a massive expansion of the program proposed by our administration. Now these mayors represent, again, another form of diversification, serving as ambassadors and guides. At the same time, they help connect residents to the support that they need. Now, I'd like to transition to one of the other critical issues facing our city, which is homelessness and housing. In our One Seattle that we envision and we are trying to lead, we believe that no one should have to live outside shelter. Nobody. So in our first year, we responded to homelessness like the crisis it is. That started with our administration pioneering the Unified Care Team, or UCT work, a simple yet novel concept that by aligning all of our city departments working on homelessness and aligning them and organizing them the right way, we can do better for those living on the street and everyone in our communities. Now the facts bear this to be true. In 2022, the UCT delivered over 1,800 referrals to shelter in partnership with contract outreach providers, helping connect those experiencing homelessness with places to go, with service resources. In tandem, the number of parks and green spaces significantly impacted by encampments were reduced by 70%. Now, parks are among our city's greatest amenities and resources for all of our residents. So this year, we worked to make them clean and open and accessible to all, a needed change after the pandemic, and this reminded us that without proper care and attention, our parks can fall into disrepair. With help from the UCT and the homelessness advocates, we created new systems to keep our city public spaces clean, free of debris and trash, and engage directly with community members. Again, all hands on deck. We also created the One Seattle Homelessness Action Plan website and centralized a constituent service hub and provide new levels of transparency to our residents regarding the scale of the crisis and what we're doing to address it. Just opening up the books for everyone to see what we're dealing with. And we've significantly reduced the tents on downtown streets, aligning the UCT's efforts with those of the King County Regional Homeless Authority. Working with KCRHA, the King County, and the We Are In Collaborative and private businesses and philanthropic organizations, we helped launch Partnership for Zero and the Housing Command Center. These are innovative approaches to swiftly match people with needed housing. I want to recognize Councilmember Harrell's leadership as a leader on the King County Regional Housing Association's governing board member, and she inspires me to continue to push for new ideas and measure results to support communities in need. Thank you, Councilmember Harrell. Now, despite the important work from the city and KCRHA and more, we're still seeing more in-house people die outside in King County in 2022 than before. And that's just heartbreaking. We have to be honest about that. Change begins with housing, with shelter, and with services. We must bring people indoors with urgency and compassion. So this year, you will see our administration launch a new neighborhood-focused approach and teams for the UCT. The first teams will launch next month. And as we expand this type of coverage to neighborhoods across the city, their work will be defined by relationship building and continuous improvement. We want people to know and see and feel and love the communities that serve, particularly our own employees. We believe this is the right approach and the most effective approach. We will, it only takes one person. So we'll also deliver continued support for the KCRHA in the form of renewed investments, nearly $97 million, a 25% increase toward outreach, new shelter, options, and other critical homelessness services. We also must be relentless in our push for more housing that is affordable. Our affordable housing crisis is not one that can be solved in a single year or even a single budget cycle, but we are putting in place the necessary improvements to get this done. And I'm proud of the fact that we helped produce more than 2,200 units of affordable housing in 2022, a significant percentage of the nearly 13,000 units of overall housing produced across Seattle. And we can't lighten up or let up in 2023. We put forward a $250 million investment in the budget. That is the largest of its kind ever toward affordable housing. We led with improvements to design review, and we founded a housing sub-cabinet. These represent the cornerstones in our efforts to build more housing. This year, we'll advance even more common sense improvements from permitting, the permitting process and reforming that process to our comprehensive plan update to ensure that we're making it easier to build more housing. Further, my administration is making great strides in developing our city's next housing levy. Now, this work to develop the details of this tried and tested program, our housing levy, for growing our housing stock is absolutely critical this year. I want to recognize Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda, who is a tireless advocate in the affordable housing space, and has been a strong collaborator, that's a tough word, but it's one I'm going to stumble through. A collaborator, Teresa Mosqueda, in this process. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mosqueda got 3 shout-outs. She's much really a collaborator with us. And so candidly, my direction on the housing levy is going to be very simple. We must give the voters of Seattle an ambitious and achievable plan that lives up to the scale of the housing crisis that it is. We must do more than ever to prevent homelessness. A bold pledge and proven method to build thousands of units of housing. It should deliver rental assistance to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. And resources to stabilize our workforce. We have a workforce that can be described as dedicated, relentless, committed workers who sacrifice to those in need. That's the forward-looking vision we seek to realize in this effort on the housing levy, and we will be excited to present it to the voters. I need to talk a little bit about transportation, an area where, quite candidly again, we've seen trends go in the wrong direction. This is a tragic direction in terms of fatalities and serious injuries. So in Seattle, I think we all can agree that no one should have to worry about being hurt or killed by a crash or collision. That is why we've recommitted to strategies that protect vulnerable users as we work towards our aggressive Vision Zero goals of ending traffic deaths and serious injuries, aiming not for, quite honestly, not for what's easy, but for what is right. In the coming days, we will share alongside SDOT Director Greg Spots early actions we're taking to get back on track with this goal, and in our administration we will lead, as I've said before, when I had run for office, I said we will lead with people and we will lead with safety. It's for that reason we worked hard to receive a $25 million grant from President Biden and Secretary Pete Buttigieg to implement safety improvements in underserved neighborhoods. We're very proud of that investment. Now, I've been told that Joe and Pete, as I know them, I don't know about you guys, I'm on a first name basis with them. Of course, I'm joking like I'm known to do. But let me be very clear that I think they're waiting for a shout out in DC, but it's our federal delegation working with our federal delegation and members of our team, working together, we're successful because we centered here in Seattle equity, and we had a clear plan. That's why we received these kinds of investments. I want to give a special shout out to Councilmember Tammy Morales, who has been a strong voice for pedestrian and cyclist safety in South Seattle and across the city. And I look forward to working with Councilmember Morales to help make these investments real. Thank you, Councilmember Morales. Now, in this time of change, we must transform our streets and neighborhoods to be places where walking is encouraged and multimodal transportation is safe, where our sidewalks are vibrant and we pursue exciting new options such as outdoor dining and retail and street cafes. And I can't say that without mentioning Councilmember Dan Strauss. Councilmember Strauss has championed time and again partnership with our office, and I want to thank Councilmember Strauss for his great leadership and partnership. Thank you, Councilmember Strauss. A transportation system where there is thoughtful calibration and collaboration with our freight, maritime, and small business partners, and where we prioritize infrastructure improvements for nearly 200 bridges that we own, inspect, and operate. It was my honor to help get the West Seattle Bridge repair across the finish line. An incredible effort, one Seattle teamwork that reconnected our city, including 100,000 West Seattle residents. And Councilmember Harrell, I'm going to try to say this: we can't have one Seattle without West Seattle. Channeling in my Councilmember Harrell. So now we are also focused on partnering with Sound Transit to deliver light rail to West Seattle and to Ballard, and right here to Seattle Center as part of Sound Transit 3. This is the largest transit expansion effort in this country and the largest infrastructure project in our city's history. So, see, in our new Seattle, we want to see neighbors and visitors be able to take fast and reliable and safe transit to make memories at Memorial Stadium or at Climate Pledge in the arena, to watch the Storm, the Kraken, and yes, one day the Sonics. To enjoy the new bumper shoot and relish the return of the Bite of Seattle. Well, thankfully, we don't have to wait that long for the bumper shoot and the Bite of Seattle. We're returning it to the Seattle Center this year. Something we all can look forward to. And I would be remiss if I didn't want to thank Robert Nellums, our recently retired director of the Seattle Center. 40 years of service. 40 years of service. Thank you, Robert Nellums. So, light rail expansion is also critical for reaching our ambitious climate goals. We set them last year. Last year, I issued an executive order that took 23 climate justice actions and accelerated emissions reductions by 82% by the year 2030. Our work to take on climate change and fight environmental injustice was recognized internationally for our innovation and our community building. I have no doubt that, again, Councilmember Sawant's passion for a just climate future has helped inspire many in our community to take actions as well. And I'd like to thank Councilmember Sawant for that leadership, and I'd like to say this, that I remain optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that as Councilmember Sawant leaves the City Council, that she will say at least one favorable statement about our administration as a parting gift. Throw us a bone or something. But in all seriousness, thank you, Councilmember Sawant, for your leadership. This year, we're ready to implement some of the strongest building performance standards in the country, helping deliver clean buildings across neighborhoods in the city and hundreds of new green jobs in the process. We'll also continue to support households in replacing unhealthy oil furnaces with modern clean heat pumps. Now, with climate impacts and extreme weather part of our city's foreseeable future, our innovative, resilient hub strategy becomes critical, providing communities in need with spaces to stay healthy and safe during heat events, flooding, and cold weather. We seek a Seattle with 30% tree canopy, a target based on health and equity and climate resilience, a vision for a truly an emerald and evergreen city. We have to work to protect and grow our tree canopy, and in the coming weeks I will share the details of a new legislation and an executive order to preserve and plant tens of thousands of trees. So in closing, I think you get the message. We're at a time of incredible change for our city, a rebirth. In 1918, contrary to popular belief, I wasn't around then, but in 1918, a young man in Kumamoto, Japan, traveled over 700 miles to Tokyo and become a sumo wrestler. Now, his family never knew what happened to him in Kumamoto, and the problem was he was a big man, but he wasn't a very good sumo wrestler. So he decided to leave Tokyo and come to the United States to seek safety and prosperity, and found work as a houseboy in Seattle's Broadmoor neighborhood, where he learned to speak English from a very kind family. In 1942, he was falsely arrested for being a Japanese spy, and he was put in prison. Then he was moved from the prison to an internment camp with his family. That man's grandson became the 57th mayor of Seattle. Despite the fact that he and my mother were treated so badly, he loved Seattle and what it had to offer, as did my mother. Their optimism lives in me. Now, we started this speech with Taylor introducing me. The father she spoke of, whose death left her in despair, was my best friend. He lived with me for 8 years after high school. He helped me in my first run for office in 2007. And one thing about your father is he believed in seeing the best in people around him. He always saw opportunities, endless opportunities. So as your mayor, I cannot let my grandfather down. I cannot let you down, and I certainly can't let your father down. Their level of optimism, coupled with the hard work, that's the answer that will allow Seattle's success. See, the challenges facing Seattle, they're real. But the strategies we've adopted are intended to make a difference, not just today, but for generations to come. There is no substitution for hard work. It's going to take bold thinking and hard work to make a Seattle where everyone feels safe, a Seattle where everyone is housed, a Seattle with jobs and opportunities, a Seattle where we fight for equity and fairness, a Seattle with a downtown that's the envy of this country, a Seattle with fast and safe streets and transit, a Seattle with healthy and clean water, a Seattle where you can raise a family and start a business, a Seattle we can all take pride in. Over 60 years ago, at the World's Fair, right here on the Seattle Center grounds, leaders and residents of our great city came together to present a vision of what a strong, vibrant city could and should look like. We now face the same task. The future of Seattle is one that we're building today. The city we want to see, the city of the future, is here. If we envision it, we can realize it. So once again, we must embrace the boldness and innovation that our city is renowned for. We must turn our policies into progress and unite to build one Seattle together. The state of our city is that we are ready and willing to put in the hard work. Let's do it together once again.